A local charity realized that it had never received a donation from the town's most successful lawyer. The volunteer in charge of contributions called him to persuade him to contribute. Our research shows that out of a yearly income of more than $600,000, you give not a penny to charity. Wouldn't you like to give back to the community in some way? The lawyer thought about it for a minute and replied, "First, did your research also show that my mother is dying after a long illness and has medical bills that are several times her annual income?" Embarrassed, the volunteer mumbled, No. Second, that my brother, a disabled veteran, is blind and confined to a wheelchair? The stricken volunteer began to stammer out an apology but was cut off. Third, that my sister's husband died in a horrific traffic accident. The lawyer's voice rising in indignation, leaving her penniless with 3 children. The humiliated volunteer, completely beaten, said simply, "I had no idea." On a roll, the lawyer cut him off once again. "And I don't give them any goddamn money, so why should I give any to you?" A small-town lawyer called his first witness to the stand in a trial, a 80-year-old woman. He approached her and asked, "Mrs. Singh, do you know me?" She responded, "Why, yes, I do know you, Mr. Kulkarni. I've known you since you were a young boy, and frankly, you've been a big disappointment to me. You lie, you cheat on your wife, and you manipulate people and talk about them behind their backs. Yes, I know you." The lawyer was stunned. Not knowing what else to do, he pointed across the room and asked, "Mrs. Singh, do you know the defense lawyer?" She again replied, "Why, yes, I do. I've known Mr. Gupta since he was a youngster, too. I used to babysit him for his parents. And he, too, has been a real disappointment to me. He's lazy and bigoted, and he has a drinking problem. The man can't build a normal relationship with anyone, and his law practice is one of the shoddiest in the entire state. Yes, I know him." At this point, the judge called both lawyers to the bench. In a very quiet voice, he said with menace, "If either of you asks her if she knows me, you'll be jailed for contempt." An old couple is celebrating 75 years of marriage. At the party, one of the grandkids asked the grandma what the secret is to such a long, happy marriage, as they never seem to argue or disagree about anything. The grandma tells them a story of when they first got married. "It was our wedding day and we were very poor, so we were heading to our honeymoon on our donkey and cart. We were about an hour into the journey when the donkey just lay down and wouldn't budge. My new husband said to the donkey, 'That's one.' After a few minutes, the donkey got up and started going again. After another little while, the donkey again sat down and wouldn't move, and my husband said, 'That's two.' Again, eventually the donkey got up and we were on our way. Then eventually the donkey stopped and wouldn't go any further, and without a word, my husband got down and shot the donkey in the head and said, 'That's three.' I was so shocked, I started screaming at my husband, 'What did you do that for? Are you crazy? That's terrible.' My husband turned to me and he said, 'That's one.'" The FBI had an open position for an assassin, and after conducting thorough background checks, interviews, and skill tests, they narrowed it down to 3 candidates. They brought the final candidates in to test their abilities. Each one passed the exams with flying colors. For the last test, the FBI agents led the first man to a large metal door and handed him a gun. "We need to know that you will follow orders no matter the circumstances," they explained. "Inside this room is your wife sitting in a chair. Your task is to kill her." The man stared at them in disbelief. "You can't be serious. I could never shoot my wife," the agent sighed. "Then you're not the right person for the job. Take your wife and go home." The second man was given the same instructions. He entered the room with the gun, and after about 5 minutes, he came out with tears in his eyes. "I tried," he said, "but I just couldn't do it." The agent shook his head. "You don't have what it takes. Take your wife home." Finally, the last candidate, a woman, was given the same instructions. She entered the room with the gun. Moments later, they heard multiple shots, followed by crashing and loud banging on the walls. After a few minutes, everything went quiet. The door creaked open, and there stood the woman, drenched in sweat and looking exhausted. "Some joker loaded the gun with blanks," she said, panting. "I had to do it the hard way." A blind man went to the hospital for an eye operation. After the procedure was completed, the doctor checked on him and asked, "Can you see now?" The man shook his head and said, "No, Doc, I still can't see anything." The doctor, trying to figure out the issue, jokingly said, "Let's try something unusual." He called the nurse over and asked her to remove her clothes. "Can you see anything now?" The man paused for a moment and replied, "No, still nothing." A woman joins a country club and overhears some guys talking about their golf game. She chimes in, "I used to play for my college's golf team. I was pretty good. Mind if I join you next week?" The guys are a bit hesitant, but no one wants to say no. So one man finally says, "Okay, but we start at 6:30 a.m. He hopes the early tea time will discourage her. She hesitates for a moment, then asks, "Is it okay if I'm up to 15 minutes late?" They roll their eyes, but reluctantly agree. The woman shows up at 6:30 a.m. sharp, plays an incredible 2-under par round, and beats every one of them. She's friendly and pleasant, and the guys are thoroughly impressed. They congratulate her and invite her back the following week. She smiles and replies, "I'll be there at 6:30 or 6:45. The next week, she shows up right on time at 6:30 a.m., and this time she plays left-handed. The guys are floored as she still beats them with an even par round. They can't figure out how she's doing it, but they're amazed by her skill. She's gracious, compliments their good shots, and the guys can't help but invite her back. The third week, she arrives 15 minutes late, which irritates the guys. This time, she plays right-handed and barely beats them, keeping the competition tight. The guys mutter to themselves, thinking the late arrival is a little game of hers, but she's so charming and complimentary that they can't stay mad at her. Afterward, they grab a couple of beers at the clubhouse, and one man finally asks, "How do you decide whether to play right-handed or left-handed?" She blushes, then grins and says, "Well, I'm ambidextrous. It depends on how my husband sleeps. Before I leave in the morning for golf practice, I pull the covers off him. If his willie's pointing to the right, I golf right-handed. If it's pointing to the left, I golf left-handed." The guys burst out laughing, but one of them, still curious, asks, "What if it's pointing straight up?" She winks and says, "Then I'm 15 minutes late." One day, Mrs. Jones went to have a talk with the minister at the local church. "Reverend," she said, "I have a problem. My husband keeps falling asleep during your sermons. It's very embarrassing. What should I do?" "I have an idea," said the minister. "Take this hat pin with you. I will be able to tell when Mr. Jones is sleeping, and I will motion to you at specific times. When I motion, you give him a good poke in the leg." In church the following Sunday, Mr. Jones dozed off. Noticing this, the preacher put his plan to work. "And who made the ultimate sacrifice for you?" he said, nodding to Mrs. Jones. "Jesus!" Jones cried as his wife jabbed him in the leg with the hat pin. "Yes, you are right, Mr. Jones," said the minister. Soon Mr. Jones nodded off again. Again, the minister noticed. "Who is your Redeemer?" he asked the congregation, motioning towards Mrs. Jones. "God!" Mr. Jones cried out as he was stuck again with the hat pin. "Right again," said the minister, smiling. Before long, Mr. Jones again winked off. However, this time the minister did not notice. As he picked up the tempo of his sermon, he made a few motions that Mrs. Jones mistook as signals to bayonet her husband with the hat pin again. The minister asked, "And what did Eve say to Adam after she bore him his 99th son?" Mrs. Jones poked her husband, who yelled, "You stick that goddamn thing in me one more time and I'll break it in half and shove it up your ass." "Amen," replied the congregation. A man walks out to the street and catches a taxi just going by. He gets into the taxi and the cabbie says, "Perfect timing, you're just like Frank." Passenger, "Who?" Cabbie, "Frank Feldman. He's a guy who did everything right all the time." Passenger, "There are always a few clouds over everybody." Cabbie, "Not Frank Feldman. He was a terrific athlete. He could have won the Grand Slam at tennis. He could golf with the pros. He sang like an opera baritone and danced like a Broadway star, and you should have heard him play the piano. He was an amazing guy." Passenger, "Sounds like he was really something special." Cabbie, "There's more. He had a memory like a computer. He remembered everybody's birthday. He knew all about wine, which foods to order, and which fork to eat them with. He could fix anything, not like me. I change a fuse and the whole street blacks out, but Frank Feldman could do everything right every single time." Passenger, "Wow, what a guy." Cabbie, He always knew the quickest way to go in traffic and avoid traffic jams. Not like me, I always seemed to get stuck in them. But Frank, he never made a mistake, and he really knew how to treat a woman and make her feel good. He would never answer her back, even if she was in the wrong, and his clothing was always immaculate, with his shoes highly polished too. He was the perfect man. He never made a mistake. No one could ever measure up to Frank Feldman. Passenger: how did you meet him? Cabbie: I never actually met Frank. He died and I married his wife. A man driving a Kia stops at a traffic light next to a Rolls-Royce. The Kia driver rolls down his window and calls out to the Rolls-Royce driver, "Hey, pal, that's an impressive car. Does your Rolls have Wi-Fi? My Kia does." The Rolls-Royce driver replies, "Yes, it has Wi-Fi." The Kia driver continues, "Nice. And do you have a fridge in there? I have a fridge in the back seat of my Kia." The Rolls-Royce driver, getting irritated, responds, "Yes, there's a refrigerator." Not backing down, the Kia driver asks, "That's cool, man. What about a TV? I've got a TV in my Kia's back seat." The Rolls-Royce driver, increasingly annoyed, says, "Yes, there's a television. A Rolls-Royce is the epitome of luxury vehicles." The Kia driver says, "Amazing car, but do you have a bed in there? I've got a bed in the back of my Kia." Frustrated that his car lacks a bed, the Rolls-Royce driver speeds off. He heads straight to the dealership and orders a bed to be installed in his Rolls. The following morning, he picks up his car, and the bed looks fantastic, complete with silk sheets and elegant brass accents. It's undoubtedly a bed suited for a Rolls-Royce. The Rolls-Royce driver spends the entire day searching for the Kia. Finally, late that night, he spots the Kia parked with fogged-up windows. He gets out of his Rolls-Royce and knocks on the Kia's window. At first, there's no response, but then the owner pokes his head out, dripping wet. "I now have a bed in the back of my Rolls-Royce," the Rolls-Royce driver declares smugly. The Kia driver replies, "Did you really drag me out of the shower just to tell me that?"